Yes, South Africa is a land of socioeconomic and ecological contradictions, but it does not, what's the word? Excuse us from our responsibility as professionals. We do need proper, you can go to the next slide, and the next, and the next. Yeah. So we do need proper standards and guidelines to be able to do this. I mean, I've been trying for the last year to get into the SABS committees or actually find out how one gets into them. So if anyone has an idea, please let me know, because that is where we can start, There is a global standard underway where they have agreed for a clear definition of resilient infrastructure, and hopefully this will work its way to us, but we do not need to wait for that to happen first, for it to be done. In terms of the climate change standards in South Africa, we have the adaptation to climate change from the SABS, SATS 14092, which looks at risk assessment, adaptation planning, monitoring framework. It is not regulatory, and it talks about having dedicated task teams. So in conclusion, I just want to say that we need regulations and design standards which need, and our current ones need to be evidently revised, to reflect the uncertain climatic conditions that we operate under. Engineering profession needs to work in new ways. We need to think on systems planning level to design and maintain our infrastructure, both at a national, local scale, so that we can deliver resilience at least cost. We need to, and this I'm very passionate about, to promote the skills needed in engineering for adaptation. I mean, we've got a very young workforce. Would it not be something that as a country we're thinking about in the future from the CETA's perspective to be able to build and develop these skills in-house and be able to even send it out to the rest of the world in terms of our youth programs? We need to enhance training programs where the current engineers are retrained on systems thinking and resilience thinking. And finally, I also want to say, all of this will obviously make demands on engineering capacity, but we need to be able to find a way to balance the demands and expand our learning as well, and include data analytics and new interdisciplinary methods, and technologies in the way that we do our design projects. We need to look at the social science and the economics rather than just using past engineering solutions to be able to come up with these designs. And this will require an interdisciplinary approach where there's going to be more collaboration between engineers, urban planners, environmental scientists, and community stakeholders to develop integrated solutions that address multiple dimensions of climate resistance. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You may keep that microphone with you. Thank you very much, CEO of the South African Institute of Civil Engineering. I think your presentation was very insightful, but I think also as an organization, I think it places you at the forefront in terms of championing some of these initiatives, and I'm glad to hear about some of the work that you are doing. And I think one of the important things that you've mentioned for me is really, I think, about all of us, I think, working collaboratively, working together. And I think being under this umbrella of the CBE, I think we are essentially, I think, at the right place where we can essentially try and ensure that professionals work in an integrated manner. So my two elevator pitches are here before me. Probably they form basically two sides of the same coin. One is from an engineering perspective. The other one comes from an environmental background perspective. So I'd like to open up, I've got a couple of minutes for some questions. I know that this morning we may not have interacted enough with you, but also would like to hear from you in terms of sharing some of your perspectives, making comments, but also in terms of asking some questions to our elevator pitches that we've heard this morning. So if I can see, are there any hands? If I can be assisted with the roving microphones, I've got one hand here. There's two. Is there one more? And there's a third one at the back. Is there a last one? I see MM Kalokshi. And then you'll be number 4. There, sir. May you please, yeah, just please tell us who you are. When you're asking your question, tell us who you are, which organization you are from, and who is your question to, and then you can fire. So, Pearl, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Pearl Gola. I am from the South African National Biodiversity Institute. I don't think I have a question, it's more of a comment for Prof. So we've been working in this area of ecological infrastructure and national capital accounting and investing in ecological infrastructure. And one of the things that we've cautioned against is assigning monetary value to ecological infrastructure. So what we'd rather do is assign monetary value to the ecosystem service rather than the asset. Because then we fall into a trap where people think that they can actually buy a wetland, which is not true. So from a policy perspective, that's not true because all water resources belong to the state. So the National Water Act is very clear about the fact that our water resources belong to the state. The custodian of wetlands, rivers, springs, etc. is the Department of Water and Sanitation. Hence, we have water use licensing, we have environmental authorization, so that you can't just do anything willy-nilly on ecological infrastructure, particularly buying it. So we need to have, like you said, there is a conversation that we need to have about how do we value or invest in ecological infrastructure without actually selling it away.
Okay, right. Got you. Thank you very much, Pearl. Mama, Councillor Dolly Shandu, over to you. Sisi microphone ku Councillor.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Greetings to leadership yonke ekhona phakathi kwethu. Mine, it's not a question, but it's a comment, because lento ethi ubudlelwano phakathi kwamakhosi and the councillors iyona edla umbethe kakhulu. Some of izinto mhlasimpe they provoked ama-councillors, whereas kukhona izinto ezibekiwe uhulumeni ezithi amakhosi awabe part and the parcel of ama-structures e-council, so that i-information bayithole ngokulinganayo nabo nama-council. Yabona-ke le ama-blue lights la elembeni nje-ke Prof ayikho nje. No one jokabhakuze nge-blue light because there was a memo. Nangu mayor we-district, nangu mayor we-local. Siyisebenzisi lento because siyayihlonipha imithetho. If kodwa kukhulumeka endaweni enjengalena abantu bakuthatha as if kwenzeka ngempela. Whereas kwamanye ama-district asinakho. Sisholo ukuthi vele abantu banje ngeke sikhethwe sonke kanye kanye, ngeke silingane vele. But ukufika as councillors simandatewa umthetho othi njalo kufanele ukuthi ama-ward councillors abize imhlangano. Sine-public participation kuma-office of the speakers. La khona kunama-IDPs, mayoral mbizo and other programs ezisho ukuthi kufanele ukuthi abantu sibe in touch nabo. Cha sizoya kubo sihamba ngazo imoto ngoba sibekelwe phela ukuthi sisebenze ngazo. Sisasebenza within the term of office. Bengifuna nje ukclarify some of the things because ifika ibe sengathi amakhansela asephakeme kakhulu. Kanti amakhansela iwona program director ezwa ihit yomphakathi. The provincial government asizenzi izindlu kuma locals. But abantu, when you are going to the IDP meetings, abantu bafuna izindlu to the local level.
Sure.
Bafuna abantu izinto zakwa health eyisho ukuthi bafuna izibhedlela esingeyi prerogative yethu as i-local government. But thina sithatha lezo zinto sizise phezulu kwi-provincial and national ukuze ikwazi ukuthi zi-implementeke. Yithina abantu esi-implementayo, but i-hit eningi izwa amakhansela. Cha hayi prof le imoto sizohamba ngazo ngoba istipulate kumthetho ukuthi must-use lezo imoto ezifanele. Kunelimit yakhona ukuthi awungeqi emalini ethile ukuze uthole ukuthi cha siyasebenza sisemsebenzini phela uma usebenza kufanele ube nama-benefits okusebenza. Thank you very much.
Siyabonga kakhulu, Councillor. Prof, I hope you understood all of that. We have a third question at the back. May we have the next microphone here, please? Okay. Question number 3. We need a volume on that microphone.
Good day, everyone.
Yes.
Kylie Lezenani from KZN DOT. My question is addressed at the CEO of SAISI.
Yes.
I'd like to find out with the decrease in the skill pool of engineers, what is SAISI's approach towards climate resilient infrastructure? Because she mentioned a point that there's currently no work for engineers, and engineers are depleting from the environment. But however, there's this crisis that we are faced with. So just on a high level, is there sufficient budget to address such a crisis? And how can we proceed with that? Thanks.
Sure. Siyabonga kakhulu, Kylie. Baba, phambili.
Thank you, Program Director. Again, one is very impressed with the level of presentations one is receiving. For Professor Musecho, I have one that would be a question linking to what the first speaker raised at first, where you're talking about certain assets being in the hands of ownership of the state, like the water, wetlands, and the such. But now the program of dealing with climate change, needing to have the structures like an agroecology network to be made. I'm asking what his take would be on a decentralized agroecology network, be in a rural environment with such questions being posed. Who would the initial or the initiators, ideal initiators be for that? But also, who would be the custodians of this, seeing that the assets are not entirely owned by traditional rulers willy-nilly? On that as well, how would carbon trading beneficiation on that be looked at, considering the complete value chain, the participants from the ordinary private businesses to traditional leaders and areas where local municipalities are also having to have a role to play? So it's a question of what his take would be on that and how it would have to be dealt with.
Sure.
Beyond that, for SAISI, and I noticed that some contributor to skills development, to jobs as well. There are people who have had direct experience on farms. For instance, a business manager in a farm, having to be exposed to skills that are innately engineering. Recognition of prior learning for such people so that such engineers could also play a role in helping those that are coming in, also ensuring that the opening up of jobs for other people with similar skills and also rare skills. For instance, I used earlier in the earlier question, agroecology. It's not, there is no institution in our country that teaches agroecology as a study program. Now, recognition of prior learning skills and their advocacy as SESI to ensure that such climate mitigation programs are trained for and educated for in like a tertiary level.
Sure.
I don't know if my question is phrased clearly, but I think they get the
Ba-
drift.
ba- bafundile labantu bazoyithola nami ngizobasiza. Besicela uqala with you CEO, if you can just address those two questions around the skills. And then the Prof Message, I know there's a lot that you need to chew on. So if I can just allow you to just make your contributions to the discussion.
Thank you very much, Program Director. As I see, we are a learned society, so we believe that our value in this whole chain of the built environment is to do advocacy and raise awareness on some of these issues affecting our industry, and we cannot do that without partnerships. As I mentioned, I'm answering now the DOT question, that our strategy around this is around skills, is around standards that need to be revised and getting into these SABS committees, and it's around engineering, technology, and innovation and a new way of thinking. We do have an alliance with the UK Institute of Civil Engineers, and when I looked at one of their documents, they actually had a working group around this, around resilient infrastructure. 10 months later, this working group consisted of engineers, urban planners, government, public sector, private sector, that they came up with this framework, and engineering was really only a certain part of this framework when I answer your question around the budget required to be able to do this. So we need to get to that place as a country where we start to sit around the table as different interdisciplinary professionals, and with government and the private sector, to be able to even start with these working groups, even as it was stated in the climate change adaptation, that was released by the SABS committee. So I can't really give you an answer on that, but what we will continue to do is advocate for skills of the future, because we have a 63% young members within our institution and within the industry as well, in terms of the workforce, and ensuring that we revise our standards to include the new way of thinking within engineering. We utilize technology and innovation, and we also remember to do the basics, which is maintenance. Then the second question, I understand your question, even though it wasn't really a question, but I understand it. We will support any forms to that our regulators also support in terms of recognition of prior learning. And it is true that this ecology, agroecology is a new concept within the country, and we will support any initiatives around this. We have actually started with a study to look at all the various subsects of engineering and all the various ways that this has moved into other studies as well, into other professions. And I will actually go and check and ensure that we have included this as part of that as well. So we will support any work that our regulators do around recognition of prior learning. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO. Prof?
Okay, thank you. Leadership, I'm happy that I was able to get the response that we're getting from you there. Like I said, I took a bit of time to understand the thinking of our traditional leaders. And I also got a sense that from one of the traditional leaders who said, traditional leadership is the most stable form of governance over a very long period of time, right? Compared to government and government officials. Now, with that comes the aspect of them not forgetting. When you go to a traditional leadership structure or environment, you always find 1, 2, 3, 4 very old or senior citizens there. They do not forget what happened 30 years ago when somebody came with a blue light. That is where it comes from. I'm not suggesting that we are doing it currently, but when you talk about traditional leadership, they don't forget. I'll give an example of an institution, chairperson of the CBE, an institution called ESCOM. When there was load shedding around the country, and you work for ESCOM, when you go to communities, for as long as you were from ESCOM, they always associate you with ESCOM, giving us load shedding. That is the same way that some communities look at government officials or councillors, not to say that every councillor or every body in leadership structures behave that way. I hope that clarifies it.
Right, yeah. It was a
Right.
comment. Thank you.
That's one. Two, carbon trading and how that can filter down into some of the community members and everything. When we suggested this idea, in this particular project that we are using as an example, together with traditional leaders and community members, we designed a community beneficiation model where we say if carbon trading brings in 100 Rand in this community from the systems or infrastructure in that area, we're going to break it down this way. 10% is going to the traditional leader. 30% is going towards education in that community. 30% is going to infrastructure. 30% is going to investment. So that benefits the community and it becomes an open system of community beneficiation model. We thought that works wonders. Now, I agree. Hence I said it's a conversation that we should have. I agree, but I want to give you an example as I conclude this. I'm saying I agree in terms of ecological infrastructure or ecosystem services. There is a nature reserve as part of the 67,000 hectare piece of land that I referred to earlier. In that piece of land or nature reserve, there are cycad trees, right? Some of them as old as 600 years, 300 years. Now, a community from Germany comes, they identify those cycad trees as valuable ingredients for their cosmetic products, right? They go around the community, they pay a young boy 50 rands to go and dig up a cycad tree that is thousands of years old or hundreds of years old. They give that boy 50 rands, right? But as a community, we discussed a possibility of bioprospecting and maybe planting or replanting some of these cycad trees outside the nature reserve so that we can protect the ones in the nature reserve themselves. But do you think that cycad tree that is 3,000 years old, it's an infrastructure asset, is it worth 50 rands or is it worth a bit more than just 50 rands? That's where the discussion about infrastructure and the service comes in. It's a discussion that we should have continuously.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. Let's give the CEO as well as the Prof a round of applause for quite an intriguing and engaging discussion. Thank you very much for enlightening us with your views as well as your perspectives, and so we appreciate you. Thank you. Let's give them another round of applause as they descend from the stage. And thank you very much for all your questions. But I think also, again, this is a platform for all of us, I think, to engage a bit more. I know that there were a couple of hands that were up. I know, Oscar, I've missed you there at the back. But please do feel free to interact with the presenters while we are still part of this meeting today. Ladies and gents, we have two more presentations to go. I'd like to move on to the next one, which is talking on the integrating climate-related risks into the financial system stability framework. And with that, Dr. Sanjay Muno, who's the Chief Business Development Officer from the Federated Employers Mutual Assurance, will give us that presentation this morning. Will you please give him a round of applause as he steps up to the stage? His talk is entitled Integrating Climate-Related Risk into the Financial Systems Stability Framework. Welcome, Sanjay. So you just need to move that for yourself. Present it that way. Okay. Okay, good to see you.
Okay, thank you everyone, and good day to you, and thank you for the invite from the Council for the Built Environment to this very important event of speaking about climate change. So it's something that we started discussing at FEM, and maybe some insight on the next slide. So FEM operates under license of the Federated Employees Mutual Assurance. We operate under license from the Department of Employment and Labor, and we provide workmen's compensation to the construction industry. So we provide cover to just over 7,000 employees, so probably about 50% or most of the larger employers in the construction industry, and just over 300,000 employees. So the rest of the employees are registered with the compensation fund, but I'll speak a bit in terms of what we have, based in terms of our statistics. But how workmen's compensation works, the insurance side of it is we look at the loss ratios, which is a very critical component of insurance. And so the loss ratios means that the premiums that we receive from employers, or based on the return of earnings, we then calculate, we get an assessment. We look at the loss ratios, so meaning what sort of claims costs we paid, the pensions, etc. And then we look at the reservings, right? So if the claims costs are much more expensive, it then means that we're going to have to increase the tariffs, and that will thereby increase the premiums to cover the additional claims costs. So from an FEM perspective, whilst we operate under license from the Department of Employment and Labor, we also operate under license from the Prudential Authority. So if you look at the world of work, it's a very hazardous place, and looking at the high number of individuals who suffer non-related injuries and illnesses every year, 374 people worldwide, 2.8 million people who are killed as a result of occupational incidents and illnesses on an annual basis as well. So definitely a very sad state of affairs that we seeing as a statistic that's been reported by the ILO on an annual basis. So we've also, as FEM, started engaging a lot with the International Labour Organization in terms of accident prevention. So from a construction perspective, the number of the construction workers are 3 to 4 times more likely to die from an accident at work in developing countries, right? By 2050, the estimated annual cost of climate change damage worldwide is projected to range from $1.7 trillion to $3.1 trillion. So this is massive. This is probably more, it's not probably, but it is more than the GDP of South Africa, right? And besides the climate change aspect, it's the human suffering as well that's associated with it. So from an insurance perspective, and maybe to get back to that point there as well, so we look at the solvency capital ratios, and we have to report on that as well, and ensuring that we keep our claims costs to a minimal as well. So any additional or extra claims costs are definitely passed on to the policyholder. We do pay out merit rebates at FEM, which we're busy with at the moment. We pay out billions of rands of rebates over the past 10 years. And we also then will load an employer as well if there's an higher than expected or anticipated claims cost. So when we talk about South Africa from a global rate of warming, it's twice as fast as a global average. And South Africa has the highest level of carbon emissions in Africa. And extreme weather events are not natural disasters, but as a result of human-induced climate change, right? So from a construction perspective, definitely massively concerning. And how does climate change influence health and safety? Employees are exposed to the related climate changes as a result of increasing temperatures, extreme weather events, UV radiation, and vector-borne diseases, right? So if you have flooding, you know that there will be diseases. If you have a construction worker who's there, the likelihood of them getting ill as well is very high. And if you look at this particular incident at the bottom, in 2023, which is not a long time ago, right? 5 farm workers experienced severe difficulty breathing and later died from heat stroke in the scorching heat of Northern Cape. So definitely what we will do is looking at the statistics of this, and what we're seeing being reported is of massive concern. And when you talk about climate change and how does it influence health and safety, we could look at cultivating a positive relationship between the employees and encourage collaboration. So for example, if there's a construction site, if you know that the temperature is very high, then rather stop work or provide the necessary hydration, provide the necessary PPE, and determine the worker's degree of fitness, right? I think if you look at the different projects, they would require a different level of medicals as well, so ensuring that your workers are well equipped. There was one incident where there were workers who were picked up on the side of the road. They went onto a site, they went into this drainage, and there were fumes as a result of the high heat, and unfortunately 4 of them had passed away in that incident. Okay, the next slide. Okay, you can go to the next slide, sorry. So when we talk about FEM in terms of the number of fatalities, so since 2000 up until 2022, there have been 1,659 fatalities that have been reported to FEM, which is an average of 72 fatalities per year, and certainly a very high-risk industry compared to other industries like your forestry or even the mining sector as well, where we're seeing, unfortunately, that majority of the workers are not, well, not majority, but a large percentage of employees are being killed in the construction industry. The next slide. Okay. So when we talk about the number of incidents as of the 30th of September 2024, from an FEM perspective, as a workman's compensation provider, we've registered 48 fatalities from the construction industry, right? And just over 4,500 accidents and over 513 disabilities in the construction industry. So definitely a very high number of individuals when we're talking about contact with extreme temperatures, where we've had 86 claims and there were 32 permanent disabilities as a result of that. Unfortunately, we don't have statistics from a climate change perspective, but definitely when you're looking at heat, overexertion, heat stroke, etc., will be related to excessive heat. Okay. Okay, the number of fatalities, when you're talking it over a period of time as well, looking at the lost days, which is also quite a concern from a productivity perspective, when we measure it as well, we know that the construction industry is under severe pressure, and looking at it when we have the number of accidents also increasing as the level of productivity increases in construction. So we noticed, for example, during COVID, there was a reduction in claims. For example, in 2019, we had 8,191. It then reduced to 6,136. But we can also now see that there's an increase in terms of the number of claims that are being submitted through to FEM. Okay, go to the prevention program. So as FEM, what we are doing, we do have a number of different prevention programs and health and safety initiatives. We are embarking on initiatives with the organized labor. So we formed the Organized Labor Health and Safety Committee. And how do we start engaging with shop stewards? And climate change will be definitely part of that engagement as well. And when we're looking at our prevention program, so our prevention program, which we are in the process of being, which is in the process of being launched, we are looking at rolling out e-learning courses for construction workers, and what we're trying to do is incentivize the construction work as well, right? So what we do as FEM, we pay out merit rebates in billions to our policyholders, but we're trying to now influence the health and safety behavior of the construction worker. So typically how this prevention program will work is that we will pay a construction worker either data or airtime to the value of about 100 Rand if they complete the e-learning course, and we will then keep in contact with them via WhatsApp and send them general messages as well. So for example, if we know there's a severe condition that's in Limpopo or Mpumalanga, we can then send a communication to the construction worker in terms of corrective measures that they need to be working at. I think in terms of time, I will maybe pause there, but just to say thank you everybody, thank you to the Council for the Built Environment as well for this invitation. Thank you.
Thank you. Sanjay, please stick around. Yeah, thank you very much. I think you are well within time. Also, I'm not going to let you go. If I may just ask you to please stay behind so I can use up some of your time. Ladies and gents, I'm going to move on to the next presentation, and then we can deal with both presentations in terms of opening it up for a discussion. The next topic will be building resilient infrastructure, and this will be presented by Mr. Ndumiso Kholomane, who is the Director of Infrastructure Research, Planning and Systems in the Eastern Cape Department of Public Works and Infrastructure. Let's give him a round of applause as he sets himself up on stage. Thank you. Over to you.
Good day to our political principals, good evening to our traditional leaders, to our colleagues who are speakers, and also to the community at large. I'm hoping also the students are here in this event. Also, I'm greeting also to them. Ladies and gentlemen, I will be talking about the issue of building a resilient infrastructure. Next slide. I'll start my conversation when it comes to the observation. As we know that in the last 10 years in the country, we've been experiencing a lot of extreme heat, cold, and rain. Can I put it on the side? Okay, yes. Yes, we've been experiencing a lot of heat. Nothing is fine. Yes, okay. And if we look at the, sorry, my thought process has been, yeah. And if we look at the last week, on the 5, in fact, this week, in Tuesday, there was also a snow, which has not happened in the last 85 years between Indaba and Khafrenet, which is November. Which is almost summer. We're having still snow at this time of the year. And also just been observed that we, as the communities are building in wetlands, we're building in close to rivers and streams. And this is not only done by rural communities, it's done by developers, it's done by, in the urban areas, that is a challenge. And also, there is a report that was produced by the University of Western Cape, the University of Cape Town, that is talking about the issues that, with the increase of the temperatures in the country and also around the world, by 3%, it is going to affect the labor capacity by 30 to 50% when it comes to construction. Next slide. I want to talk to the pictures that we are showing here. On the far right to you, left to you, you would see that what happened in last year in Queenstown, there was a flood which affected the private hospital, affected, if you look it down, but it's not clear, maybe when you get the picture you're going to see, it affected the businesses that were happening in that area. What is happening actually in that area is that the developers have built on a wetland. They have closed the wetland as a result when there was flooding. Because they have backfilled that whole area, the hospital, if you look at the hospital has to be closed and all the patients have to be moved about around 200 kilometers from Queenstown to East London. That is the impact that it had. And also there was if you look at those pictures, the first pictures there that is showing the aerial view, if you look at, there is a green foliage. As you're going down, that foliage is stopping because of that backfilling. On the top here, on the bottom of the picture, there was a McDonald's that was developed when they were doing the backfilling. After the flooding, the whole that McDonald's was demolished. Now, the other issue that maybe it's a topic for another day is that using alternative building technologies. How resilient are they when it comes to flooding? Because the McDonald's I was talking about, it was built using the ABTs, but during the floods, it collapsed, of which it needs to be rebuilt. And the hospital, they had to renovate it for over a couple of, affecting the whole area. Furthermore, also looking at the people living around the Tukela River, you'd find some communities, the traditional leaders have given land that to the Tukela River. Every time there are floods, those communities are getting affected. I'm hoping the community, the human settlement is here to a plea to say that we need to find a way to resolve that when it comes to those communities. How can we find ways to move those communities, bearing in mind some of these communities, they are using their last rand to build their houses. Now, if every time there is flooding, they will be facing that scenario. Probably there's an urgent need for them to be moved from that area. Next slide. What I'm showing here, colleagues, is that there is a report that is produced by South African Weather Services every 3 months that is looking at the seasonal climate watch, which is a focus for the next 3 months. If you're looking at for the next 3 months in the country, which is November, December, January to March, these images are showing that on the brown side, it shows that there won't be any rain. On the green side, it shows that there will be rain up to 800 millimeters on the eastern side. If you look at the eastern side, where we are currently, it shows that for the next 5 months, we'll be having higher than normal rains. For this information is important that for municipalities to use as they mitigate the flooding in these areas. Next slide. So also what we're looking at as opportunities, firstly, let's look at the dynamics of the country when it comes to human settlement. 60% of South Africans are living within the urban areas, of which those urban areas, they only constitute 1.5% of the surface area where the people are living. And also those urban areas are currently, they are functional, but there are some areas that are affected by poor service delivery. Next slide. And also another area of human settlement is your rural human settlement, which constitute around 13 million, which is 39% of the communities in the country that are living in rural areas, of which the only disparity with that is that 80% of the land in the rural areas is low populated because it's farming lands, of which 20% of those rural areas are former homelands, which are densely populated. At least by 70% of those rural areas are sitting on the 20% land, which is highly denslated, and also there are more marginal communities that are poor, relying on remittance and also grant from the government, and remittance also from their family members who are living in urban areas. That is the dynamics of the human settlement in the country. Next slide. What we are proposing as an opportunity in this area, in these areas, colleagues, is that currently we have the National Building Regulations that was done in 1977. It needs to be changed to look at to cater for the current challenges that we're having as a country. What I'm also proposing is that we need to move the building regulations from NRCS, which is currently the custodian under the DTI, to CBE, which is under the Department of Public Works, so that it can get the attention it deserves. Ever since 1977, it has never been changed. We would need to change it to cater for the current needs of the country, and also to look at the values of the Constitution. The current regulations is more looking at the urban communities. It does not look at the rural communities. So we need a building regulations that is looking at both urban and rural communities, and look at the traditional councils as part of the value chain when it comes to the building regulations. And also what we are also proposing is that the lack of infrastructure coordination and collaboration is a challenge currently in the country. In 2014, the President enacted the Infrastructure Development Act, which puts an emphasis on the coordination of infrastructure. And also what we have done in the province, in the Eastern Cape, we have, as Public Works, we have a unit that I'm working under that is started in 2022, which is called Transversal Infrastructure Coordination. Our role is to coordinate infrastructure in the province, to make sure that everyone in the province who are on the same page. We have governance structures, like there is a human settlement and broadband governance structure, which in that structure we have water and sanitation, we have education, we have health, we have COPTA, we have all the departments that are have a value chain when it comes to human settlement. We've got national departments, SANRAL, all those departments are sitting in that governance structure so that human settlement, we're looking at it at the whole value chain, not on the area. Currently, we see human settlement as just building houses. It's beyond just building houses. And also what we are proposing that we need to, like your innovation hubs, the universities, your TVET colleges, your CISR, your ACREM-NSA, CBE, CITB, NHBRC, we need to have all these institutions that are research related, and also they need to come to work together and find ways that in the small corners that we are working on, how can we collaborate, how can it be coordinated that whatever we're doing, it finds a resonance in one area. And also as a country, we need to develop a single skills methodology to see that what skills that the country needs in order to resolve the challenges that we're having, in order how do we develop the country into what the country that we want. In order to do that, we need to know from primary school to tertiary education, what qualifications do we need as a country? Next slide. Moving way forward, colleagues, we need to adopt and adapt the principles of resilient infrastructure developed with the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction in our local conditions in order to build resilient infrastructure. So these principles, they apply, I'm only looking at them from the critical, from the high level, which is the national, provincial, and the municipal level. Starting from looking at, just at the moment, you're looking at critical infrastructure, which is your energy, transport, potable water, wastewater, solid waste, and also digital communication. The role of the critical infrastructure is to sustain the supply of critical services, protecting society and the environment by acting as a buffer for extreme conditions and events. As these principles, colleagues, are not there, they are there intended to complement the existing principles, like your SIDS methodologies, your ITMS systems that we as a country are using, and all other systems that are already existing. Next slide. Next slide, please. Yes, okay. This principle of resilient infrastructure, they seek to assist with raising awareness and setting up a common basic understanding of what resilient infrastructure constitutes. It forms the basis for planning and implementation of infrastructure projects that take resilience as a core value. They raise engineering design based on available and reliable data, so that parameters of safety and disaster risk mitigations are in place and use and new and retrofitting on projects. They are there to set out as a desired outcome of our national infrastructure systems to establish resilience of critical services and assist the public and the private sector in making the informed policy investment and decisions. Next slide. These are the 6 interconnected principles, colleagues. One, looking at your continuous learning, we need to learn from what is happening. We need to have researches of what is happening currently in the environment and find ways how do we, in order for us to adapt. We need to find ways that in universities that and TVET colleges, we have a curriculum that is looking what is currently happening in the country and how to look forward in making sure that the country changes. And also the proactively protected, we need to have safety standards that exceed basic minimum norms. In order for us, currently we're looking at this is the minimum norm, we're sticking to this minimum norm. We need to change that to go beyond the minimum norm. We need to have standards that are, and also designs that are fail safe. And also we need to look at environmental integration Currently, when we're building, the mere fact we start building, colleagues, we are damaging the environment. So we need to make sure that when we build, we bring back. When you take away from the environment, we need to pay back to the environment by planting trees, by making sure that the environment around the infrastructure that we're building, we make sure that it is more natural and also it is protected. And also the social engagement. Currently, we are doing things for the communities. We need to start doing things with the communities. We need to start decisions with the communities. We need to empower communities to make their own decisions. We need to empower to make sure that communities are educated with the decision that we're taking. These events, they serve also that purpose. And maybe it is, I really appreciate what CPE has done with this event, to take it down to the communities, not to have it in sentence, in areas where they are affluent areas. We need to really take it to where our people are sitting. And also we need to look at shared responsibility, that this is not just the responsibility of government to make sure that the environment is protected. It is a responsibility of everyone, including the private sector, including the communities, including the students that maybe are here, including everyone. The paper that you are throwing away, at the end of the day, it goes down to the rivers and to our sea. We need to be adaptively transformative. So, as a country, as you know, that the country that we are in and where we're coming from as a country, we need to find ways that when we're putting up these systems, they are done in such a way that we protect our communities. For example, when we talk the issues of just transition, we need to find ways that if we were moving away from coal, we need to do it in a manner that is responsible. An example, the whole province of Mpumalanga is reliant on coal as an industry. So if we, for example, if we decide tomorrow we're doing away with coal, what is going to happen to those communities? So when we're moving away and trying to adjust, we need to do it in a responsible manner. Then we adapt in a manner that we don't, we make sure that the communities are not affected negatively. The whole of this, what we want to achieve at the end of the day, colleagues, we need to start looking at net resilient gains. What net resilient gains is, for example, if you're building a mall here in this area, what happens to that water when it goes to the bottom? Are we also making sure that the mall that we build here and where the bottom line, where communities are going to be affected, you also make sure that that mall does not have effect in those communities? So that is net resilience. It makes sure that whatever we do in a certain area, how it affects the environment, we need the whole value chain, so that at the end of it, we don't say, no, I'm building my mall. What happens to the next person down the stream is none of my business. So it is for these, for municipalities to make sure that any businesses that are being developed, they look at the whole value chain, that what happens in nature is whatever you do on this arm, on this side here, it affects the bottom line. Next slide. What I want to make a call to you colleagues is to go through these documents in your own time. So in order for you to get more information when it comes to net resilient infrastructure, to look at your low carbon emission strategy that the country has developed, and look at the acts that have been developed, to look at the reports that have been produced by the universities. And also on the far right, there's information about yourselves, about your homes. How can you make sure in your homes that you become more climate change resilient? Thank you.
Sure. Right. Thank you so much, Ms. Ndumiso Holomane, for, I think, for sharing your perspectives this morning, but also just to show us what is happening in the Eastern Cape from your department. We really appreciate it, and also for sharing some valuable resources. If I can invite you to stay on stage to join Sanjay. Right. Colleagues, I've got time for two questions. If you do have any questions, Oscar, I think I've recognized your hand. If I can please have some assistance with roving mics, and also Councillor at on the front. Is there maybe one more question? So we've got 1, 2. Okay, let's limit it to 2. My brother, over to you. Please tell us who you are, where you're from, and who is your question directed to. Thank you.
Thank you. Ngibonga program director. Ngiyabingelela endlini yonke. Igama nguSiphamandla. WakwaGwamanda. I'm from Twamela Consulting, khona eMandeni. Program director, maybe for Ubaba Ndumiso or Alomane, it's a compliment. Very nice presentation. But I feel maybe to just go one step back to a panel discussion then, with Usalga. It's a comment, it won't be a question.
Sure.
And it's one that's very close to my heart, because if you speak of resilience, climate change resilience, you cannot ignore planning, intentional and coordinated planning for that matter. So we are where we are because we did not plan. And if you speak of resilience, the two burning issues will be mitigation and adaptation. So we are now adapting because we did not mitigate as a people. We are sitting here looking at climate change from an adaptation perspective rather than a mitigation, adaptation perspective, because we did not mitigate for it. But my direction is towards KZN in particular, and what are we doing as Usalga, COGTA, ETIA, and policy and legislative level. If you look at KZN, 65% of KZN is under Ingonyama Trust. So it's a traditional land. I live in Mapumulo, and if there's any plan you could do for Mapumulo, you would be confined to 5% of the space, which is the town. The rest of the municipality, there is literally no plan you can develop because it's rural and it's unplanned. So, and if you look at the trend, even in Mandeni, you will find that your first-time homeowners, your retirement homeowners, for various reasons, are now migrating from your peri-urban areas to your traditional authority lands, simply because of there's no more land to build here. They're running away from tax and rates for various reasons. So when they get there, and the only authority they have that guides them towards building will be your traditional authority, in particular your indunas. So how is government proactively, because we will be able to mitigate even there, adapt there if we don't mitigate now, to say how do we proactively engage in Gonyama Trust to say, we can see people are moving from Amadogishi via Emakaya, Babume, Sikulmen and Gonyam, Uguti, I guess in the Sishen, Nika Ubekoni Mkwaka, Soiful, Nomikal Bay Club, Kulmen departments, so that there is some sort of planning, because once you get to a stage where it's a built-up area with no roads, no services, it's very difficult to mitigate or adapt to climate change, because we do not know where to start. So that is my challenge to the authorities that are sitting here to say, we are here as scientists, we are here as engineers, use us, and let's plan for these people, and at least present those plans to them to say, this is a stretch of coastline. It's already built up, there's nothing you can do, but let's look at those pieces of land that are still vacant and plan ahead and give them the plans so they can utilize them. Thank you very much.
Sabonga kakhulu, Siphamandla. Sisibusisiwe, if you can also maybe just, maybe I would like for you maybe to add some comments on that comments which was made, but not now. We'll come back to you. Babu wami la ngaphambili ngicela usiphe umbuzo wakho. Cel- Okay.
Thank you
Sisiyabonga.
again, Program Director. The first one is more a remark and a recommendation. For Ubaba Undumiso Khomolan, we are very appreciative of the presentation here, and I think you won't go to an extent of Usisuwe if we use that presentation for public mobilization and things like that. And I think it's a very user-friendly presentation which talks into the issues that would end up with the appropriate results. But also on this is a recommendation. One will hint, not necessarily hint, but talk again about hempcrete and the goo that is used for constructing buildings as well as piping. And we know hemp can be used even in car parts manufacturing. But because of its high tensile strength, its lightness in weight, and the durability in that although it's biodegradable, it doesn't compose as fast as bricks and blocks would. I think it would be a recommendation for this material to be used as an appropriate, user-friendly, also to increase the carbon negative footprint for the country. More buildings, more infrastructure, even in stormwater and everything being done like that would increase our country's footprint, and we gain from that. The last thing I wanted to throw, it's a question. I don't know if it would appropriately sit with anybody in particular. Where we have two streams of science, one being called conventional appropriate science and the pseudoscience, some people say. Some will call the others pseudo and others pseudo. If we look at where storms, where these disasters take place, there is the so-called high-frequency active auroral research program situated near those places and cities where the disasters happen. What is it that we can say to the people who object and say these are not climate change effects, but it's climate changed programs that are aimed at causing the disasters? But also this is aligned with the chemtrails, the degradation of soil because of geoengineering measures that are new but end up with soil being bad. What is it that we can say to dispel such statements and point out that science is science and it should be regarded in this way? All these things are objections that we need to know how to talk when we present to communities what it is that should be done without them saying, no, but you're causing the problem anyway. Why would it be that we end up having to try and counter what you would also counter further on?
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Sanjay, maybe perhaps a question for you. I mean, do you think is government, in terms of public infrastructure, do you think is government actually doing enough in terms of integrating, I think, climate-related risks when we are planning for public infrastructure? So I'd just like maybe to leave you with that question for you to ponder on. If you can, if you'd like to maybe to make some comments and maybe respond to some of the questions that have been posed here this morning.
I think for me, the gentleman, it was more of a comment, and also the use of hemp. I think for me, as a country, we need to really take it very up. If you look at from the whole of the wild coast all the way to the northern parts of KZN, you found that it's a plant that the country really needs to spend a lot of investment onto it, because it can really create a lot of jobs, and also it can help us with some of the alternative building materials that are in the country. They are not really South African materials, it's materials that are coming outside the country, that at times they might be not of benefit to our communities. For me, I think that will be the comment. Thank you.
Sure. Right. Thank you. And for you, Sanjay, any thoughts?
Yeah, thank you, Program Director. I think from a workman's compensation perspective, our sort of stance is, of course, that any construction work that takes place must ensure that there's proper health and safety compliance from the management and, of course, for the employees as well. And as you see, the massive, I mean, we've been engaging as well with the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure, where we're talking about trillions of rands worth of infrastructure development, but not to the detriment of the construction workers, right? I think many, unfortunately, when you talk about construction, there's no barriers to entry. And when we looked at the incident that occurred in Georgia as well, where employees were picked up, I mean, I was there with the Department of Employment and Labor, and individuals who had been picked up on the day as well. That was their first day on that site. They were being paid the minimal wage of about 80 rand a day, and unfortunately about 34 individuals had been killed on that site. So I think as we move forward in terms of infrastructure, spend, development, I think the construction worker upskilling is very critical. I mean, as FEM, we've launched our mentorship program. How do we upskill the SMMEs as well? So how do we reduce the number of fatalities, number of disabilities, number of incidents for the benefit of all? Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Sanjay. Sisibusisiwe, if I can just draw on you maybe for any comment on some of the statements that have been made here.
Thank you, Program Director. I think what I can say is that not all development needs to be leading to urbanization, but again, not all development needs to lead to densification. And I think that's where maybe when we engage with our traditional leaders, we get it wrong. We need to engage with our traditional leaders with the understanding of their vision of the land. If we want to urbanize and densify populations everywhere, it doesn't work for the environment. So I think we don't need to say we can't develop a traditional land, but we can develop it in the direction that the owners would like to see it going. I think that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I think your input into this discussion. Ladies and gents, I'd like to draw this part of our meeting to a close, but to say my appreciation to Dr. Sanjay Muno, as well as Mr. Ndumiso Holomane for the insightful presentations this morning, but also to thank you, I think, for still being engaged at this time of the day and actually asking questions that are actually here to spark debate, and also just to recognize some of the good work that is actually being done. So if we can just give them a round of applause, but also give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you very much, gentlemen. You may descend the stage. Ladies and gents, we are nearly there. I've got a couple of more items to go this morning. I think the first one, and I think in terms of the business and in terms of the program that was basically given to me, I think we have taken all the necessary inputs which we had planned for, but also just to appreciate the discussion as well as the interaction. But I think a lot of it actually happens off the stage, actually in terms of what you do with your various interactions amongst yourselves as different professionals. And I think at this stage of the program, I'd like to call on Mr. Dumisani Mbongwa, who's the Director of Economic Development Planning and Human Settlements in Mandeni Local Municipality. And he is here to give us a summation of Indaba and what it means for Mandeni, and perhaps for him to share a bit of an implementation plan in terms of where to from here. Let's give him a round of applause as he gets himself ready.
Thank you. Sibonge Program Director, angibingelele Mayor wethu Councillor Ndlalose, District Mayor Councillor Ushande Saphumile, ngiyambona District Speaker wethu, ngiyambingelela Deputy Mayor uBaba Magwaza, ngiyambingelela. Chairperson, I think for the interest of time, allow me to observe the protocol. Program Director, colleagues, friends, thank you all for taking us here today. It wasn't easy for some of us. We work around the clock, but the outcome of these 2 days engagement does move us forward. This climate change Indaba is the first step in fostering a close working relationship with the private sector in tackling the challenge of climate change in our region. I want to recognize the work of CPE, professors, intellectuals, researchers, and colleagues. I'm so proud of your dedication, your total commitment to putting yourself on the front line for this cause. Program Director, we have reminded that there are a lot that still need to be done. So what are we taking home as Mandeni municipality? Mandeni need to rethink how we build our infrastructure, such as road, bridges, human settlement, if you want to respond to the devastating impact of climate change. Climate change, Indaba has opened the door for transformative action to achieve climate resilience development. This will help us to break the mindset that for decades has kept us from moving beyond business as usual. Climate change initiatives can only be achieved through working together in building resilience and adaptive capacity to deal with climate change issues and challenges. Therefore, Mandeni will partner and collaborate with all levels of government, private sectors, traditional leadership, and civil society in tackling this animal called climate change. We will mainstream as a way of spicing our plans. We will mainstream climate change into our spatial development framework, planning environment bylaws, and planning policy so that there is adaptation to the change that come with climate change and develop mitigating programs that will make the municipality cope with climate change. They will emphasize that building capacity for community is critical in climate adaptation and resilience. Capacity building to enable the community to confront climate change and able to implement municipal climate change initiatives and programs will be prioritized in our strategic document, that is our IDP, in ensuring that we provide the required skills. We empower our community. We sensitize our community, and we create. We create a platform where we talk about this climate change. We're also going to develop plans and mainstream climate change response in sector planning and service delivery mechanism. Program Director, we hear that there is in fact, the issue of climate change is sometimes difficult to implement because there is a funding challenge. However, it was interesting to hear that after a very long vacuum, an act to regulate climate change has been assented. It is hoped that this will open up funding opportunity to help the municipality in developing climate change policies and strategies. We are going to build an enabling environment through encouraging a green procurement. This transition will require that we look at our policies and strategy, so that they can able to adapt to these proposals. Initiate and encourage the research and development of innovative, resilient, durable and affordable alternative building technologies. Reduce climate change vulnerability and increase the resilience and adaptive capacity of small-scale farmers using tools and technologies such as early warning system. such weather alert so that they can prepare themselves for rainwater collection. How best we build a better tomorrow? And that was a question that was raised yesterday. Our approach in that is, or in moving forward, will derive from our moral duty to provide future generation with a better world that one, with a better world than the one we inherited, and that is truly sustainable development. Water is life, sanitation is dignity. That's the weight from Udok Chapchelis. We will, as Mandeni, will continuously partner with our district municipality in raising awareness, to sensitize our people, to sensitize our community, to sensitize our business, not to destroy water, but to save it for the future. Continue as we always do, influence the human settlement department in promoting rooftop rain harvesting system in our human settlement project. We feel that this is an excellent way to use natural resource efficiently. I want to pause there. Thank you very much.
Siyabonga kakhulu, Mbongwa, for that summation, and just we wish you everything of the best in terms of going forward. I think just feel free, Wuti, we are a family, and there are a number of professionals who are here. I think they're available to you guys in terms of assisting you, in terms of taking your plan forward. So siyabonga kakhulu for having us in your municipality. Let's give him a round of applause. And then just to give a vote of thanks, bengisacela ngokukhulu nje ukuyithoba, ngicela ukuthi sibizele ngaphambili uKhansela Lawrence Magwaza ukuthi eze ngaphambili just to give a vote of thanks. Sicela simshayele izandla seza ngaphambili. Siyabonga nje.
Ngiyabonga Sihlalo. Angikale ngibingelele kuwena. Sure. Sibonge ukuthi usiphathele uhlelo olude kwaze wayenamuhla. Let me start by greeting our mayor, local, Umdlalos, Kanjalo, no mayor we district, Ushandu in absentia, no local we speaker, local speaker in absentia, PMC, no mama. Utishan, district speaker, oloku enat, namakhansela ahloniphekile. Kanjalo nabasebenzi bonke bomkhandlu, nabasebenzi bonke be district. Kanjalo ne province, ne national, esiloku sinabo. Ngimukele kakhulu uCEO uDr Miyaza ngeqhaza nje elikhulu olibambile. Baba Miyaza siyabonga kakhulu. Kodwa ke ngaphezulu kwakho konke kufanele simshayele ihlombe uDr Miyaza elikhulu ihlombe. Simshayele ihlombe ngoba i-delegation yonke elanga phambili iholwa uye bekunye nohlalo we-board members umama uyimtshali naye simshayela likhulu ihlombe ngokuthi uza no professor kanjalo nama intellectual. Siyabonga ihlombe likhulu. siphinde shaye ihlombe elikhulu sishayela nje bonke abantu abakwazile ukuthi bebe ingxenye ukuthi bebambe iqhaza ngaphansi komkhandlu wasemandeni. Sibonga kakhulu futhi ukuthi nakuba bekhona abantu bokuhamba Mr. Nkosi ungasifeli umona ukuthi ekhaya sinabo abantu sinomnumzana ukhuzwayo municipal manager kanjalo no director wakhe umbongo bese siba ke nelady elisencane umuntu omusha lo usisumazulu uwenze umsebenzi omkhulu ekhona kupanel nabo ba deserve ihlombe. Thina ke asahambi sodwa phakathi kwethu kukhona ama ward committee nama CTW kanjalo nama stakeholders bese siba nabafundisi bethu nje ababili esibe nabo izolo kuze kube namuhla ubaba uhleza kanjalo nobaba usangweni nabo sithi ihlombe elikhulu kubona. Ngaphandle kwakho konke lokho besingeke sibe yilutho mangabe bebengekho ominister. Angifuni ke mina ukubabiza ngo deputy ngoba bebemjela njengomsebenzi wabo obungeke wenziwe futhi mhlambe ominister abakhulu kunabo. Umama ebekhona izolo kanjalo nobaba ebekhona izolo uzikalala sibashayela ihlombe noba bengekho phakathi kwethu. Sibonga kakhulu umsebenzi owenziwe ke amakhosazana kanjalo nabafowethu abasiphathele umcimbi ikakhulukazi ungaba imedia icommunication uke ube yikho konke lokho okhona nabo siyababonga ngoba ngaphandle kwabo besingeke siwenze umcimbi ube impumelelo. Siyafisa ukuthi ngaphandle kwakho konke lokho ama stakeholders ethu asemandeni akhona phakathi kwethu esingabala kuwo amaphoyisa nazo zonke izinhlaka amaphoyisa asekhaya omkhandlu kanjalo nezibheka inhlekelele idisaster kanjalo nabakwa fire abantu abangalala usuku nemini nabo siyafuna ukuthi sibaphe ihlombe. Okwami-ke ukuzalana nje ukuzobonga ngaphansi kwegama lomkhandlu ukuthi siyabonga sesikwenzile konke. Ubaba uDr Umyeza emayisebele emuva uzobona ukuthi imandeni akiyo lebicabanga ukuthi iyona. Uyabona nje ukuthi mayifika la ufike nabantu bakhe asigcwalisanga leli holo. Nathi sasithanda ukuthi sizame ukuyakha into eyi-civic center noma eyi-ICC kodwa ke njengoba sibalo omncane sazama sagcina la sigcine khona sinokucabanga ukuthi eyikhathini ezayo khona ukungcono esokwenza kunalokho. Siyafisa nje ukuthi sowuthatha umkhandlu wethu sowuthatha njengomkhandlu onengxathu eliyaphambili nokukhulu ngoba wenze kanje. Akekho umuntu ebengacabanga ukuthi imandeni ingahosta i-climate change indaba ngaleli zinga eliphezulu kangaka. Ngakho ke asibongele kakhulu sishaye nje ihlombe elingeke liphele. Siyabonga kakhulu. Sibonga kakhulu ke ubaba uNkosi owazile ukuthi ayidrive langcono besibheke wena sonke ukuthi uzokwenza ngakho yini kodwa ke ngoba umakhelwane wethu wena ngwaseThekwini ukhombisile ukuthi okwenzayo akwenzeli iTheku ukwenzela iKwaZulu Natal ukwenzela umkhandlu wasemandeni kanjalo neLembe wakwenza ngendlela ephezulu kakhulu. Ngakho ke sicela ukuthi sibonge ihlombe elikhulu nawe sikwazi ukuthi umuntu. Ngalawo mazwi ke ngeke ngisasho lutho mina olukhona olukhulu ngaphandle ukuthi besizobonga nje sithi in our midst sibonga bonke abakhona abakwazi uparticipate sinifisela ke indlela enhle seniye ekhaya sizibongeleke nokuthi sesokudla sicabanga ukuthi ukudla kuzosenza ukuthi sihambe kahle sikhulekile sibongelele ke nomculo wasekhaya nithi manenza i-climate change ngicabanga ukuthi lo muntu ozonicolela la wakhona la eMandeni uzalwa khona futhi la eMandeni ingane yakhona la eMandeni mangabe iyenza besinprovide nje ngayo yonke into esinganikayo ukuze manihamba nemakhaya libone ukuthi iMandeni ayincinyana ikuleli izinga ayilona asishayela ihlombeke naye isazocula ngalawo mazwi ke sibonga bonke abantu abakhona inkosi ke inibusise siyabonga
Siyabonga kakhulu. Siyabonga kakhulu. Deputy Mayor ngicela ungabusasuka elanga phambili. Ngicela nje ungabusaya kude. Sibonge nje kakhulu for amazwi owenzile la. Bengisacela CEO Dr. Msizi Miyeza of the CBE no chairperson uMama Mtshali ukuthi beze ngaphambili kanye no councillor umeya yethu uThabani Mdlalosi ukuthi beze ngaphambili bezodlulisa izipho to our speakers starting with the deputy mayor as well as all the other panelists. Dr. Miyeza Dr. Miyeza ngicela umyeke uMM ngicela umshiye lapho khona la kumemezela khona yena Mama Mtshali ngicela uze ngaphambili. While Uzawata is getting ready, ukuthi asinike a musical item, may I please ask all our speakers, panel members who participated in this morning's program to please come up and get a token of appreciation from our dignitaries as Uzawata is giving us a musical item. So please, all our panelists, speakers, which includes you, MM, nawe ngicela uze manje uzothatha esakho isipho. Nginqabile nje ngawo ukuthi awu noma nawe uzothola sakhe isipho kumele ukhiphe futhi ukhiphe ezinye cha angivumanga. Please, panel members, please come up on stage and get your gifts from the dignitaries and also to take a photograph with them. Zawata, over to you. Can we give this out?
Yeah, just
No, I think I can just do it. Yeah. Okay.
Onomusa. Onomsa ophezu konke izizwe zizakucinywa wena ongacimekiyo ongihawukele obongwa uyabongwa izizwe zonke isemagumbini omane waphambi kwakho
sishaya uzawadi izandla ihlombe elikhulu. Siyabonga kakhulu sisi wami, as well as the supporting acts, members of the band. Ladies and gents, if you are driving a vehicle NT 77364, NT 367, you are blocking access. If you are driving a vehicle with registration number NT 77367, you are blocking access. Also, I have a notice that Isuzu with registration number BG41KMZN, Isuzu with registration number BG41KMZN, you have left your lights on the vehicle. Please attend to your vehicles urgently. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, with the powers that are vested in me as the program director, I'd like to draw this climate change Indaba 2024 closed, and to thank you all for being part of these proceedings. May you please give yourselves a round of applause for staying all the way until the end, for engaging during the sessions, and to wish you everything of the best. I think the take-home message for me is less talk and more action. And with that, this climate change Indaba is officially closed.